What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right. Um, the Golden State Warriors came off of an impressive victory against the Los Angeles Clippers recently, and it was not really particularly close for much of the game. And the Warriors improved to an overall record of 18-2 on the year. So, um, shout out to Town Biz because if you're not subscribed to Town Biz, please subscribe to his channel, Town Biz Sports and Entertainment. All right. He posed this question about uh, where does this Warriors team rank when it comes to the all-time great Warriors teams? And I know Ticket TV did a video recently asking if Steph Curry won the championship Finals MVP and if his team won 70 games this year, would that make him the greatest player of this generation? All right. And shout out to Ticket TV. If you're not subscribed to his platforms, please subscribe to either Ticket TV, actually both Ticket TV and Pro Basketball Updates. This is my take on this. I think it's still a little bit too early to make that declaration that they're on those other teams' levels, because part of it is sustaining that level of greatness, and part of it is honestly, unfortunately, which is out of control uh, for people, luck, staying healthy. Um, that's part of it. Look, a lot of people make jokes about Trace McGrady never getting out of the first round, right? But Trace McGrady has been unlucky too in his career. A lot of people forget the 2008 Rockets won 22 games in a row at one point in that season. 22 games in a row, second longest streak in the history of the NBA, behind the 72 Lakers winning 33 games in a row. But unfortunately, they lost in the first round to Utah because their star center Yao Ming got hurt. And then the next year, they had what would have been a great championship level team, but they were decimated by injuries to Yao Ming, who never really. After that, it was the end. He retired early in 2010. Trace McGrady got hurt, and he was never the same after that particular batch of injuries. Who else got hurt? I think Shane Battier got hurt that year. Aaron Brooks had injury issues. Uh, Ron Artest, aka Metal World Peace, had injury problems. That whole team got decimated with injuries. So injuries is part of the equation, you know, and also it's their sustainability. The 1993-94 Rockets started off their season 15-0, and I believe the rest of the way they own. I use air quotes saying this. They only went 43-24 to finish with 58-24 record, which is still great, but not close to the all-time great teams. So a lot of it's sustainability. Can this team continue on this pace? But I will say this though: 20 games into the season, they have the best offense and the best defense in the NBA. All right, that's really a good indicator of an all-time great team is to be great offensively and great defensively. Um, Look, the Orlando Magic teams of the mid '90s, they were arguably the best offensive team in the NBA, but their defense was sort of like average. Overall. It wasn't great, but it was average. But they usually try to outscore everybody, and usually they did. But that lack of commitment to defense, plus some matchup problems they had with some teams, caught up with them. The Chicago Bulls were usually, when healthy, one of the best, if not the best, offensive team in the NBA. They were also usually one of the, if not the best, defensive teams in the NBA, which made them a championship level team. The Utah Jazz were a great team for so long because of a couple of reasons. Stockton Malone was an unstoppable fucking combo, right? And the Jazz were usually a great defensive team, and they were an underrated offensive team. They weren't like this explosive, 3-point gunning team. They rarely shot threes. Rarely shot threes. I'm willing to bet that the '98 Jazz probably only took something like 9 or 10 threes a game, or 12. Not a lot. I know it wasn't a lot. But they were always amongst the leaders in field goal percentage because they got easy shots because they were dedicated to that pick and roll. They scored a lot of points in the paint. John Stockton scored a lot of points in the paint for a point guard, especially when he was younger. Jeff Hornacek was a great shooter, and their players got really good shots because of their system. Um, so these are things that we got to look for, and so far they're passing the test. But the most important thing, as we all know, is winning that ring. Um, if you don't win that championship, doesn't matter how many games you win, you're not going to be looked upon as an all-time great team. As we see the 2016 Warriors, I see Warrior fans talk about the record 73 wins, but it don't mean shit because they didn't win the title. It means a little something. It means that they were a really good team, but they weren't able to seal the deal. They weren't able to win the title. Ron Harper said it best when the reporters kept asking him about the win records back then. The win record, can the Bulls win 70, which at the time had never been done. It was like it don't mean a thing unless we win that ring, which is so true. I'll give you a team of example. The 1972-73 Boston Celtics, right? They went 68-14 during the regular season. They had a head coach of the year, the former Hall of Fame player, turned coach Tom Heinsohn. He was the coach of the year. The MVP was Dave Cowens at the peak of his powers in the early to mid 1970s. They had a great all-around team. You know, John Havlicek was still pretty close to his prime. They were an all-time great team, man. But unfortunately, they ran into a hungry Knicks team that won 60 games in its own right that year, which is tied for the franchise record along with the 1993 Knicks. And also, the Celtics unfortunately had an injury, if my memory serves me correct from reading about it, to John Havlicek. John Havlicek suffered a significant injury to his shooting elbow, which sort of limited his effectiveness and his availability. So that hindered them, and ultimately they lost in the Eastern Conference Finals, to the New York Knicks. So if you can win a lot of games, but it don't mean shit. It don't mean shit. You know what I'm saying? So, excuse me. In order for this team to be the greatest of all time, in my opinion, they got to win a championship. Uh, they probably have to win 70 plus games. Probably something like, I mean, for people to say it unanimously, they're gonna have to at least equal 73 wins. But that's a lot of. I mean, that's a hell of a ride. Because look, they're 18-2. They would have to go. What would that be? They would have to go for the rest of the season 55-7. They would have to go 55-7 to tie the Warriors from 5 years ago or 6 years ago. 55-7. I mean, that's a tall order. Plus, they probably will have to have an even more dominant postseason run than 2016 Warriors because they did lose a lot of games compared to the '96 Bulls, '83 Sixers, and 2001 Lakers. I don't know. It's just hard to say, man. I will say this though: the Western Conference is probably more competitive than it was 5, 6 years ago. It's more competitive. Um, they don't really have a bunch of superstars, so you can't really call this a super team. But if they were able to win 70 games, and romp through the playoffs and win the title, especially if most of these series aren't competitive at all, then you would have to put them up there in the conversation for greatest teams of all time. But like I said, it's way too early for that conversation. It's way too early, but there are signs that if they can stay consistent, stay hungry, um, stay on the path that they're on right now, they can be one of those teams. They can be on that level of a 67, 76er team, or 83 Sixers, or 87 Lakers, 92 and 96 Bulls, 89 Pistons, 2001 Lakers, 2000. I don't like saying 2016 because they didn't win the title, but they could be on that level. But tell me what you guys think.